That's a provocative title, a provocative book that has generated some pretty angry responses from certain sectors of the Scientology community, to say the least.
Specifically the lawyers.
Yeah.
Lawrence,
Not
thank you for being with us. So I understand when you were starting to write this book, you were paid a visit by actually attorneys.
Well, they came to the New Yorker. There were 4 attorneys and 2 spokespersons for the Church of Scientology. And this was really my opportunity to talk to the church because they wouldn't talk to me. But it was that delegation plus New Yorker fact-checkers, New Yorker editors, and our lawyer. And we sat around the entire day from like 9 in the morning till 6 in the evening. And it was one of the most grueling, interesting days I ever had as a reporter. But it was my one opportunity to get them to respond to our 971 fact-checking queries.
How'd that go?
It was actually, they brought 48 binders of material to support their allegations. And it was incredibly useful to me. I think they thought they were going to drown me in information, but pouring information on a reporter is not.
Yeah.
It's like pouring water on a fish.
Especially one like you. All right, so let's back up. You did 200 interviews with current and former Scientologists, as well as other sources. And what did you find overall? What is your takeaway in terms of Scientology and some of the problems that you might feel exist?
Well, Mika, there are 3 tiers of Scientology. Public Scientologists, if you walk into a church, you can walk away. And then there are celebrity Scientologists, and those are the people that you know. And it's not so easy for them because, again and again, they've been asked in public to make declarations in support of the church. They've given a lot of money, and they're sort of wedded in the public mind to Scientology. And then there's a 3rd tier, which is their clergy, and that's called the Sea Org. And inside that clergy, there are a number of reports of abuse and involuntary confinement. I had 12 people tell me that the leader of the church, David Miscavige, had beaten them, and more than 20 witnesses.
Now, the Church of Scientology said there's no record, no police reports, no medical reports, no photos, no documents, no evidence at all to support these allegations, no corroboration whatsoever. That was from a January 14th statement. If there have been beatings, if there have been these other incidents, why does nobody report this to the police?
I think it's not unusual as the way the Catholic Church handled a pedophile priest. They try to keep it inside the organization. They have a tremendous distrust of what they call WOG justice, that is, any non-Scientology police agencies.
What is the prison of belief that
what I found fascinating, there is involuntary confinement. There are people that have been locked up in these re-education camps for years on end. But to the great extent, it's not that they're being held against their will. The FBI was investigating this when I was investigating it. I was talking to some of my sources about what the feds were telling them, and the feds were planning to have a raid. They were going to go into this Sea Org compound, open up the doors of this thing called the Hole, where executives have been held for years on end, and say you're free. And the former Scientologist said, if you did that, they would tell you it's all sunshine and seashells. We're here for our own good.
What does your reporting show is the motivation of the people at the senior levels of the church to engage in not attempts to keep people from learning more about the church, but in the kind of abuse you're talking about, physical abuse and mental abuse? What's in it for them?
This is a church that's dominated by a single individual, and that's David Miscavige. He's exercising total control, and they've surrendered their will to him. The people that I've talked to, more than 100 people that were in close into the upper levels of Scientology who had achieved the very highest offices, except just below David Miscavige, and they describe an absolutely totalistic universe dominated by this single individual.
So explain then. Let's say Tom Cruise.
Yes.
John Travolta.
Right.
They're 2 guys. They could do what they wanted to do. They don't need Scientology, do they? Tom Cruise could come out tomorrow and say he's an atheist or become a Southern Baptist or Catholic. Nobody is going to lock Tom Cruise up and beat him up. Well, first of all, and so the first question is,
Do they
Tom
know?
Cruise is pretty darn high up in the organization. Right. So the first question is, do you think Tom Cruise knows of these alleged problems with Scientology? And secondly, what's in it for a guy like Tom Cruise who has the freedom to do whatever he wants to do and he chooses to stay in the church?
This community.
You know, I'm glad you've put your finger on Tom Cruise, because I think he has a moral responsibility. He's been the front pitchman for this organization for years. More people have heard about Scientology through him than any other person. There may be some willful blindness on his part, but if so, it's time for him to open his eyes, because he's been selling this. And I think how could the Church of Scientology change? You know, the IRS surrendered to the church in 1993 after the church launched 2,400 lawsuits against it and had private investigators following agents and so on. And part of the deal when the church got its tax exemption is that they would drop all that.
But as a reporter, have you asked the question? And I'm certainly not, doing Tom Cruise or Scientology's bidding here, but have you ever asked the question, what's in it for Tom Cruise? There must be something good in it for guys like Tom Cruise and for a lot of the followers that become members of this church that fulfill them. I mean,
absolutely.
You know, and by the way, let me just say, anybody that you talk to that's ever worked with Tom Cruise says he's the hardest working guy. He's the most polite guy. He will bend over backwards for everybody.
We met him at the Comcast.
We met him, a generous
very nice
guy. And when he left, I was struck by what everybody said behind him when he was gone about what a wonderful man he was. What's in it? And again, I'm not doing a brief for anybody. What's in it for a guy like Tom Cruise? You've studied Scientology. Right. What's in it for people?
For a lot of people going in, for the first time in their life, they might be addressing personal problems that Scientology says, you know, if you go in, what is ruining your life? What's standing in the way of your economic, spiritual, emotional progress? We can help you with that. And they can oftentimes. They have a menu of courses. You can take some auditing, and oftentimes Cruise credits it with helping him with dyslexia. So I'm not arguing with that.
Right.
I don't argue with the beliefs of Scientology. It's the behavior. And that some people, you know, especially Tom Cruise, these Sea Org members, often children, are working. They're getting paid $50 a week, and they're doing favors for Tom Cruise.
Right.
They built an airplane hangar. They handcrafted a limousine for him. You know, these are church members, and so he's being treated very well.